Today we have Jon Bassford. Hey, Jon, how are you?
I am great. How are you doing?
Good. Tell us about you.
Sure. Might be kind of an interesting thing for this podcast and topic, but I'm an operational professional. I'm a consultant and speaker, but obviously I'm also a co-parent, and I've released two books. One more on my business side of things, called The Curious Leader, and the second one is called The Co-Parenting Secret. It's not about you, and what that is a series of lessons and stories from me and my ex-wife's journey through rewriting the script on what it means to co-parent and creating a better environment, not just for yourselves, but also for your kids.
Well, in the title, it's not about you. That kind of explains it all, right?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. When we think about the typical issues that arise, it usually is not about the kids. It's about our time, our ego, our money, selling old scores. But
Hmm.
if we truly keep the focus on the children and what's best for them, then also from that, also look at the community. I mean, they always say, it takes a village to raise a child. And that's really true. And I think, trying to keep that village together and
Hmm.
keeping that village in mind, even through divorce, separation, etc., goes a long way in creating healthy relationships.
I think a lot of times the hate and disdain that the ex has for you is shown through the lack of co-parenting.
Mhm. Yeah, I think most, we've kind of adopted the term co-parenting to any kind of parenting in a two-home situation today, but majority of the time it's not.
No.
It's either disproportionate responsibilities, which is not co-parenting at all, and not even parallel parenting, and then in most cases where there is more of that 50-50 split, which we see more often today, but still it's not co-parenting because the kids' lives and responsibilities are managed completely different in two households.
Right.
There is no co-parenting. There's
Hmm.
parenting over here, and
Hmm.
maybe once a week, maybe 10 minutes a week, we interact to bring it together somewhat logistically. But that's not co-parenting.
Maybe it should be called dual parenting.
100%, 100%.
Yeah. Actually, mine was more parallel parenting. I will say because I believe his hate for me outweighs the love for his son. And that's
Mm-hmm.
unfortunate.
Very unfortunate. Yeah.
But
And I'm a 80s kid, divorce, product of a divorce. And we had the traditional mom had all responsibility, health, school, daytime, sports, everything. And dad was the every other weekend dad, where it was just eating bad, watching movies, and having fun. No real responsibilities at all. So I kind of came from that background. And so, for me, it was very important when I got divorced, regardless of what me and my ex-wife decided to do, was I didn't want that, right? I wanted
right.
real responsibility in raising my kid because I knew if I was given the out of not taking responsibility, I'd take it. And so I fought as hard as possible to have 50-50 custody without going to court over it. It actually started out initially 60-40, which it actually that schedule worked out, but we made some tweaks and changes
Hmm.
for the betterment of our child that actually kind of leveled out to end up being 50-50 in the long run.
How old were you when your parents split?
I was two.
Oh, wow. So you don't remember them ever being together.
Never. Nope.
That's like my son. His dad and I split up before he was born. So
Okay.
he never remembers us being together.
Yes.
And
So, sorry,
sometimes
go
I
ahead. Yeah.
think that's easier on the
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah. So our we split when my son was about 1.5. Uh,
Oh,
so so
wow.
so same situation. Uh, and it wasn't probably until about eight or nine, when we started getting those questions of why can't you and daddy just be together? He was having a hard time with transitions and that sort of thing. So I agree with you. I think, not you're not splitting up a home, right? When they
Mhm.
when the kid doesn't have the mental capacity to understand what's happening.
You're splitting
But
the kid.
right. Again, ours came up, and what if we had to just do, like, for my end, I just remember, like, look, do you think daddy and mommy both deserve to be happy?
Hmm.
We came to the decision we were better better people, better parents by being apart. We kind of really just each individually broke that down to him. And after a little while, he stopped asking those questions. I think he just was, going through some, personal development growth stages, right? And
Right.
things are going to pop up and cause questions to be asked and want answers for. And I think once we were willing to have those open and honest discussions with him, that those feelings subsided.
Right. And so how long have you been separated, divorced?
So 8.5 years.
Wow. So he's 10 now.
He's 10.
Oh, goodness. Such a cute age.
It's a very fun age. It's we're at the age where, much more personality, much more personal preferences. It's at an age I think where he's still young enough to like adore me and look up to me from a very high level. But at the same time, starting to see, a friendship happening as well with
Right.
interests and sharing things together, moments in life together. And it's a fun age.
I want to go back to for a minute to you growing up with your
Mhm.
family split up like that. And like you said, every other weekend you were with your dad. And so we've got to think that was back in what time frame? The early 80s?
Yeah, so my dad left in 83-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So back then, I think step families were becoming more prevalent
Mhm.
than back in the 60s.
Mhm.
In the 60s, late 60s, early 70s, if parents split, usually the next person in their life would adopt the kid.
Mhm.
So you were probably one of the few kids growing up that your parents were split. Did you have lots of friends that had to do the every other weekend at dad's kind of thing?
Very few, because we actually were raised in a very Southern Baptist home. My dad was actually a pastor
Oh,
who had an affair with somebody who was marriage counseling.
woo.
So that's why that divorce happened. Uh,
And that
and
is why preachers should never have counseling sessions with someone of the opposite sex alone.
Yeah, especially changing them to Holiday Inn. That's always a
Oh,
bad sign. Yeah. So then my mom. So I went to a non-denominational uh, Baptist church. Sorry, Baptist school, junior high and high school. My
hmm.
mom actually went to the same high school, and she ended up marrying after my dad left. Ended up marrying the best friend from her high school. And so we were raised in a very very traditional Southern Baptist home. Church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night,
Hmm.
and so divorce, in our circle, was not very prevalent at all.
Yeah.
There probably a handful of people, both between me and my siblings, who had any friends that were divorced. So very very uncommon for sure.
Do you remember? Now, again, I know you were very young, so your life, you remember always going to your dad's, right? It wasn't like all of a sudden you're 12 and you're leaving your friends. But was there a time that you were like, I just wish I didn't have to go to my dad's?
I no, I think that we always enjoyed that time.
Good.
For one, again, it was also a different lifestyle than what
Mhm.
we lived. So my dad, after, being a pastor, as one pastor described it to my mom, went out into the world, ended up owning bars and comedy clubs and other things. And
Really?
so like my mom's house, it was PG movies only, no secular music, all of these things. My dad, it was radar movies, junk food, and Michael Jackson, Elton John, and Elvis Presley for music, right?
Yep.
So we had very different lives going to my dad's, and we adored my dad, and enjoyed the time with them, because it usually was fun time.
Right. Like the Disney dad thing, which
100%.
I'm not bashing because if you only have your child every other weekend, you can still instill morals in them, but you might as well have fun with them. You're missing out on so much. And yeah, making them do homework, that's not fun. You want to make those 48 hours or whatever that you have with them the best they can be.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, I also think that, my dad, when he left, he was honest with my mom and said, hey, look, I will be a better part-time dad than a full-time dad. And I think that's because, he had the self-realization as well that he was never going to be both feet in. So the part-time thing worked better for him. And and I don't say any of this with any bad feelings. My dad had a rough background. I would say had a narcissistic parent who did some, you know, wasn't the best parent to her kids.
Hmm.
My dad recently found out that the dad who he thought was his dad his entire life, who he had never even met, was actually not even his dad.
Was that
Um,
through ancestry, DNA, or?
my wife got 23andMe for my 40th birthday, and through that I discovered some relatives and started talking to them on Facebook, etc. And I'm like, who my dad says is the dad isn't tracking,
Right,
and it tracks with his some of his siblings, but not with him and his twin sister. And so, and again, kind of going back to his mom, you know, she would say things to the twins, my dad and his twin sister, like, see, even your own dad doesn't want you. When all along, the man who he was being told was his dad wasn't even his dad.
right,
And that's why the man wanted nothing to do with them, because they weren't his.
right.
But that was kind of the psychological games that she played with all of her kids. And so, I really had to come to a realization that I do believe my dad did the best he could
Hmm.
for who he is and where he was in life and the some of the trauma that he faced in his life. So there really, I talk freely about this stuff to help other people, but there really is no animosity from me when I talk about these aspects with my dad.
Now, how did you find out about your dad? Because I'm sure at age 2, your mom didn't go, "Your dad cheated on me."
Yeah. So that was actually a long build up because my dad always said me and your mom agreed on a divorce. And my mom never wanted to bash my dad. So she wouldn't tell us why they got divorced, but would say that's not true. So I think it was probably, if I had to guess, late junior high, early high school for me. I wanted to know.
Mhm.
Again, I'm a very logical, curious person, and so I actually went to two people separately to see which one I could get the answer from. My stepdad, who knew both of them,
Mhm.
even before him marrying my mom, and my grandmother. And I don't remember which one finally told me, but I learned, and I went to my mom and had conversations about it. Later in life, my dad has been a little more open about that. Uh, Not so much to us, but has done a podcast himself with a comedian.
Really?
I think they're on like it's a series. Like he goes every week. But he started really opening up about his life on that podcast, and including his infidelity. So it is out there. So even by his
Oh,
own accord,
he has his own podcast?
it's a comedian's podcast. He's a regular guest on weekly.
Okay, you're going to have to send me that information
Okay.
because
Okay.
I
Yeah.
want to have him on here to talk about what it was like as a, we're going to say part-time dad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
would be good. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I want his information.
Sure. Absolutely.
And plus the fact, he did a 180 from preacher to bar owner.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah.
he
And,
fall in
and,
the
and
middle now, or is he?
I mean, he's kind of retired now. He still has a comedy club that he runs through. He doesn't have a physical space. He kind of moonlights at different
Mhm.
locations, and brings comedians in. But for the most part, I'd call him retired at the moment.
Yeah, being a preacher that cheated on his wife at the Holiday Inn through counseling, that's a comedy in itself, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look. I think that's what spurred the podcast was the comedian knew my daddy obviously through the comedy club and whatnot, and it's like, man, you have a crazy life story. Like, we need to get you on a podcast and just talk about it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm glad that you have a good relationship with your dad, and it's not like when you found out, you were like, I don't want anything to do with you, because your relationship with him is separate from his relationship with your mom.
Yeah, even with my stepdad, my mom is on her third marriage.
Oh, wow.
The other the second Southern Baptist didn't work out that great either, but not infidelity, but other reasons. But he was the dad who raised me, right? He was the
Yeah.
dad who was at every sporting event, every academic event. And although I disagree with how he treated my mom in the end, I do separate that out.
Mhm.
And because he was the person that was there for us, and never, you know, went above and beyond, I would say, financially, et cetera, to cover up some of the shortcomings of my dad even. But so I think it is important to separate that.
Hmm.
And even, any feelings I have towards my dad about, that part-time dad aspect and not always being there, not showing up for events, not showing up for sports, that sort of stuff. I separate that even out now, kind of forgiving him for that type of stuff.
Hmm.
And my relationship to him is strictly based upon what our interaction is now.
Right.
If he wants to show up, I'll have a relationship with him. If he doesn't want to show up, not a problem. It's
Right.
his life. Like, I have other things to worry about
Hmm.
than be bogged down with that. So, it's very, I wouldn't say we have a close relationship, but we don't have any animosity as either, right? It's just it,
Right.
it is what it is, and we love each other. And when we get together, and we don't. Yeah,
And you don't have any expectations.
correct. None.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what about your stepdad, the first one?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So not. I don't have a lot to do with him anymore. He's moved out of state. He's on his fifth marriage, I think, fifth or sixth. It seems crazy, right? Me coming from the Southern Baptist upbringing of everyone going to church and now where they are. But again, he's a good man. I would say he's got some interesting views on women in marriage, is part of the problem. But he's a good guy. He is the type of person that will give you the shirt off his back, even if he doesn't have another one to put back on. But he's seems to be doing well. When I do talk to him
Hmm.
through social media, it's always things are positive.
Right.
It was even, he and my mom split when I was, I'd say, tail end of junior year in high school, but I did invite him to my law school graduation, which would have been what, 3, 4, 8 years later.
Hmm.
And he came, including coming out of state for that. So he still
Good.
continued to show up when invited and asked,
Yeah.
which I thought was great.
I have to ask, are his views on marriage more antiquated?
Very, very biblical, I would say.
Yeah.
And my mom would say that she believed that when he married her, he saw someone who wouldn't wear pants and would do
Mhm.
this and would do that. So it's a very, very traditional way
Yep.
of looking at things, I believe.
Take care of the home, take care of the man, take care of the children.
Be submissive.
Yep.
Yep, yep,
Yep.
yeah,
Exactly.
yep.
Yeah. Now, so you and your wife have been split up or divorced for 8.5 years.
Mhm.
Have you dated a lot during that time? Have you been hesitant to date? What about her? Is she in a new relationship?
So I've been married for 2 years.
Okay.
So we we spent 4 out of 6 years of marriage and counseling.
Okay.
So we a little backstory on that is, I think we both would agree that we were incompatible living together,
Hmm.
and it was a situation where she hemmed and hawed about living together before getting engaged and back and forth, and I ended up getting the ring and proposing. Then we moved in together, and our problem started immediately. Like the minute I moved in, problems started. And you convince yourself it's growing pains, it's learning curves. It'll get better, and it
Hmm.
just never did for us. And
Right.
and the reason why I bring that up is by the time that we got to the point, so we up our counselor who we'd seen for 4 years finally was like, guys, it's time to shit or get off the pot here. You've been out there for 4 years, we're having the same conversations.
It's
Like
round and round and
I want to
round.
see you guys separate. If that's okay with both of you, you both have to agree. Then we'll come back together, and working with her one on one separately, we both we cannot be happy in this marriage.
Right.
And so she brought us back together, and right there in that meeting, we had the discussion. Okay, what about dating? And by this point, I am mentally, emotionally, and physically disconnected
Yep.
from that relationship. Right, it had been such a long time. I was honest and said, look, I'll have a dating profile up tonight if it's okay. You know, and the first reaction was like, yeah, I don't care. But then it became like, oh, if you're that quick to do that, like, how quick are you having to an affair? I'm like, well, I'm not cheating on you, but
Right.
I was at a place where I was mentally, emotionally ready to move on.
You were done. You were
Yeah,
done.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did date initially or immediately. I dated a number of different women throughout the time. She's actually been with the same man, that they're not married, but they just celebrated their 8th anniversary of being together.
Oh,
So
wow.
she dated shortly after we split, started seeing him, and they're still together as well.
That's good.
And a crazy thing about the co-parenting, I guess I mentioned my wedding is both my ex-wife, her partner, her parent, and her uncles were at our wedding.
Really?
Yes.
That is amazing.
Yeah, we have that kind of relationship to where they all can, we're all invited and accepted the invite to come to our wedding.
The thought of, yeah, no. No. No, I mean,
Yeah,
I can understand having to deal with the ex at graduation for the kid and stuff like that, but my wedding, no, I'd have thrown up.
yeah, and I gotta hand it to my wife, my current wife,
Mhm.
for I was
Yeah.
very open and honest with her about the type of relationship I had with my ex-wife. I'm like, look, we are going to text daily. Once my wife understood our dynamic and who we are as people, and she's like, I have no worries at all that anything's ever going to come back between you two,
Hmm.
romantically. But there's still, you have to have some confidence in who you are in your relationship and in your man to allow that type of dialogue. And even her parents, at first were like, are you really okay with this type of dynamic? And she goes, what would you rather be have a husband who fights with his ex-wife and is constantly toxic and they tear each other down and fight over things? Like, this is far better. John texting her and talking to her on a daily basis is far better than them ignoring each other and things just being shitty in their relationship. So I really got to hand it to everyone involved. We really did
Hmm.
build a village. I think it started with my parents and her parents, being very vocal about what we wanted to build,
Hmm.
and that one of our big things was the fact that we were getting divorced didn't mean our families had to be divorced,
Right.
because they were close. I was close with her parents. She was close with mine, and other relatives, and we didn't want our relationship falling apart to affect that, and so we're very very intentional about going into this, allowing these dynamics to stay in place.
Now, do you have any kids with your current wife?
No,
Do you plan on having kids?
no,
No. And she doesn't have any kids from a previous
nope,
relationship.
nope.
That
Yeah,
makes
she
it
she
so much easier,
Yeah,
right?
100%. Yeah. So we haven't really talked about this, but I did grow up in a blended family. My stepdad had 2 kids who we had every other weekend. So when we were pretty close to the Brady Bunch on the weekends, we were there and had his kids, because there were 7 of us total, with the parents. So yeah, it was we always had minivans for sure.
Yeah. And the weekends that your stepdad had his kids and you were there, did you see the difference in how he was with his kids versus how he was with you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard not to.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think it's intentional. I don't think it's a conscious thing,
Right. I agree.
right? But I think there's a combination of this is my blood, as well as I'm limited in my time with them.
Hmm.
I think there are at times some differences in enforcing rules and punishments,
Hmm.
of his kids versus our kids. But again, like you said, like when you have your kids for 48 hours, you don't want to play that role. You
Right.
want to be able to bond and do things with them.
Hmm.
And so they're definitely, I'd be dishonest if I didn't say that we didn't feel there was some preferential treatments. But again, at the same time, like I I believed us as kids growing up, we always felt love from him.
Hmm.
And despite those, recognizing those differences with how he treated his kids, I don't think we ever felt like stepkids to him.
Okay. Good. Good. And like you said, I don't think that him acting different towards his kids was intentional or even conscious. It's
No.
just if you have a scenario, and I know this is a bad scenario, but you've got two kids in a yard and one of them's getting ready, they're both getting charged at by a lion.
Right.
You're going to go get your kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and anybody who says differently,
Yeah.
nah, they might want to think about that. I
Yeah.
mean, you
Yeah.
might try to get both, but your kid's
Sure.
going to be first, 100%.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I agree with that.
Yeah. Now, your ex, does she have any more kids now?
She does not. Her partner has a son.
Okay. So 50% of the time, does he have him 50% of the time, or do you know?
Yes, they have a weird schedule as well, but I think it equates to about 50%.
So do they always have the two kids together?
No, and they have an interesting relationship where they're not always together, period.
Hmm.
They actually lived together for a little while and then decided, hey, this is not working out living together. So she moved
Imagine
out.
that. I'm kidding.
Yeah, so she yeah. She moved out, and they decided to do a trial of
Hmm.
staying together but not living together, and that has worked out so far. So it's a very interesting dynamic on that side. My son loves them both. And he loves telling people, talking about his brother,
Hmm.
and so he's always been very proud of that. And uh, the other kid is what, 3 or 4 years older than Henry, my son. And so there's that little that big brother role model
Right.
as well. They're both big soccer fans and play soccer and that sort of thing. So it's I think it's been good for my son.
With my son, we had him almost all the time. He did every other weekend with his dad and a week in the summer kind of thing.
Right.
But it's funny because when we had David's kids, originally we had them 11 out of 14 days, and then that switched to 50-50. So every other week, my son was an only child. And then every other week, he had four brothers.
Mhm.
For the kids, you don't even think about the differences that they go with that. I mean, it's like, this is weird kind of thing. It's just not normal, we'll say.
Yeah, like even small things, right? The preference of what gets fed for dinner or
Yes.
what we're watching for TV. That when you have four kids fighting over that versus just the kid doing their own. Like I tease my son all the time, like when he wants to watch something on TV. I was like, when I was growing up, we only want to watch what my dad wanted to watch. Like we did not get to make that determination.
No,
Like
you
you
didn't
are
even
so
say what
lucky.
you wanted.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right. We're like, hey, Dad, this is on over here. Can we watch that? Like, yeah, you didn't speak up at all.
No.
But yeah, like I would imagine. Um, that's extremely tough, right? Like I couldn't imagine. Again, me and my siblings were with my mom and stepdad majority of the time, with sharing my step siblings a little bit of the time. I
Hmm.
couldn't imagine having that be reversed, for sure.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm kind of curious. I wonder if your stepdad and your mom discussed when he would have his kids, because they could have probably timed it to where they were kid free one weekend a month or
correct,
two weekends a month,
correct.
right?
Yes, correct, 100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Again, I don't know. I don't. I wasn't old enough to remember because so they would have probably gotten married when I was somewhere between 3 and 4, if I had to
Oh, okay.
guess.
Yeah.
Um, so I was still too young to remember the initial onset. But my dad initially, I don't think it was an overly set schedule.
Hmm.
For one, what my sister was 6 months old, so
Oh
actually,
gosh.
I think my sister was a newborn when it had left, within months of being a newborn.
Mm.
So my dad didn't even get her at the very beginning,
Right. Because she's a
till she was
baby.
potty trained and other things, right? And even
Yeah.
like we initially were like it began with like an afternoon with dad, then
Yeah.
one night with dad, then a weekend with dad. So it
Hmm.
grew over time. So my guess is, although I've never really asked my mom about this, my guess is it wasn't probably until she was married with my stepdad that there was a complete formal relationship with my dad and visitation to
Yeah.
where
More
they
structure.
they were able to build that schedule around when he had his kids.
Yeah. Does your sister have a good relationship with your dad?
They do not speak.
Okay.
That has ebbed and flowed
Hmm.
over the years. I respect her decision in that.
Right.
I will say that because I talk my book a lot about intentionality and showing up,
Right.
and that's I go to every one of my son's events whether I have him or not.
Hmm.
And I think that's very important for kids to know, especially for when times like I can't, I'm traveling for work, I have a speaking gig, I have to miss something. He always knows dad is there when he can.
Right.
I also believe for parents, it's okay to not to always be there. You
Hmm.
can have a life, you can have responsibilities outside your kids.
Right.
But my son knows that if I can be there, I am going to be there. When we were kids, we never felt that way with my dad, and I think my dad has missed some opportunities to show up for my sister, to
Yeah.
mend that relationship, and hasn't made the effort to do that.
And a lot of times kids put their parents splitting up on themselves.
Mhm.
Like it's their fault for some reason. And I mean, I'm not talking just young kids. I'm talking adults that's like mentally you think, what did I do to contribute this, right? And I could see being your sister, she's like, great, I was born and he left. So, what did I do wrong?
Yeah,
Kind of
I
thing.
mean, my son could probably view it the same way. The fact that,
Right.
like, when our fighting, again, being in counseling for 6 years, it was about household chores and this and that. Well, when a baby comes along, it's no longer about trash and dishes. It's about a living human being. So
Right.
everything that you're fighting about and the tension and how we live together was heightened. And so, obviously, it had nothing to do with him. It found it was fuel to an issue that
Hmm.
already existed. And I
Right.
think with for us, we were here through therapy. We went to here, so we thought we were ready to have a kid, where we should have been up here.
Right.
Right, and then we would have those problems. And your question was about my sister. I didn't mean to steal about my son, but I saw
No,
the
that's good.
the combination there. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that she has those thoughts. I think it is more about how he showed up, especially in her teen years and into
Hmm.
adulthood. I think that um, her coming into being a young woman, and living her life, I think didn't was an embarrassment to my dad at times, and I think my dad didn't know how to relate to that.
Yeah.
Whereas with a young man living the same life, it is viewed differently.
Yeah. Dads
And,
don't want to talk about periods, right?
right, and sex
Yeah.
and all these things, right? And so I think I think that's really when the disconnect began, is her later teen years,
Hmm.
and kind of going through life and experiencing life's ups and downs. And uh it's I think it's tough to pinpoint one particular thing, but I think at the end of the day, I think my dad would see, and I'll say this because he expressed this in his the podcast he's on, but I think he would say that we are holding on to things from our childhood of him not being a good dad. And I would disagree with that. I think there might be some issues with my sister for that bringing, but I think for the most part, it's about how he shows up today,
Yeah.
or how he doesn't show up. And I'm a big believer that if a sacrifice is worth it, you never call it a sacrifice.
Right.
Right? Like if you want to do something, you want to be there for someone. Doesn't
Hmm.
matter how much it costs, what the train delay was, the plane delay,
Right.
whatever it is. Like, you know, my dad always lets us know the sacrifice he's making to be there. And for my 40th birthday, I called him up. I said, "Hey, like this is what always happens. You show up to these events, you make it about you. The sacrifice is taking you to get there. I just attended my friend's 40th birthday party. And when I showed up, he didn't know how much my plane cost, that had a 2 hour delay, all the issues I faced in getting there. He said, I can't believe you're here. And I said, I wouldn't miss it for the world.
Right.
And
Right.
that's the difference, right? How my dad shows up to things. So I called my dad and left him a long voice text and said, I don't want to talk about this. I'm tired of the excuses. I want to get this out. If you're going to show up, I want you to show up because you want to be there. I don't want to hear
Hmm.
about excuses, problems, issues that you can't afford it, but you did it anyways.
Right.
You want to be there, be there. If you can't, no problem. I understand. I won't hold it against you, but I'm tired of you showing up this way. And so he
Right.
did show up, and he listened. And so I think that kind of gives a little dynamic about my dad and how he presents himself, even when showing up, that just never sat well with us kids. And so again, I would say that we don't have animosity about the upbringing. At least I'll say I don't.
Right.
But it is I use a quote from King Lear. I love you according to my bond, no more, no less. And
Hmm.
if your listeners don't know the point of King Lear, it's the king thinks he's dying, asks his three daughters to explain how much they love him, and how they described how much they loved him would be what they got for inheritance. And the one who said, I'm not going to play this game. I love you. You're my father. I love you. Like, I'm not playing this game. She got nothing. Well, when he was at the end, she was the only one that was there for him. Right. So like I kind of view my relationship with my dad is If you're willing to put forth effort, you're willing to contribute,
Hmm.
I will be there. If not, no worries.
Right. Yeah. And that as a child, it's funny because when you're talking about that, I remember my mom always having to tell me what she had to sacrifice
Mm,
to be there for me.
hmm.
But I don't remember those same conversations for my siblings.
Okay.
She and I had a different relationship than she had with my older sister and younger sister. And somebody asked me one day, said, "What do you?" Because we are completely different. My sisters and I, they're more alike than I am, and they're like, "What do you think the difference is?" And I thought about it, and I said, "My mom didn't love me enough to spoil me."
Mm,
And they were like, "She loves you." I said, "I didn't say that. She loved me, but the bond she had with my older sister and my younger sister was completely different." And it's not like, again, it wasn't intentional. It's not like when I was born, she's like, "Oh, great. I'm not going to like this kid." I probably came out of the womb going, "Daddy, where's my daddy?" Because he and I have a different kind of bond. And so I think it is important for us as parents to pay attention to what we say when we do go to these things for our kids and not say, "I had to sit in traffic for 3 hours," because it takes away from the experience and it makes your children feel like a burden.
right. Yeah. And it's crazy what we remember as kids, what sticks with us and
Hmm.
kind of helps labels our relationship with our parents. One of my most vivid memories, this is would be fifth and sixth grade time period. We had a front porch with a porch swing on it. And I remember every other Friday swing on that porch swing, waiting for dad to be there at 5 o'clock. And it's 6 o'clock rolls around, 7 o'clock rolls around, 7:30. This man had the worst luck with cars. I tell you, every other weekend he had his car broke down. Right? There's always something. There's always some
Always something.
excuse. But like again, I don't harbor ill will towards him because of that. But that those are the vivid memories that I have about how my dad showed up.
And that's why you don't
Um,
have any expectations of him now.
Correct. Yep.
It's a self-protection mechanism.
Yeah. Yeah. I've lived on the East Coast now for 20 years. My dad has been out here for my two weddings and my 40th birthday party. So if I didn't go back to Illinois to see my family, I wouldn't have seen them in the last 20 years, except for those three instances.
Yeah. Yeah. I know my dad, it's funny because when my son was little, he had to pass my subdivision twice a day on his way to work and on his way back. And do you know how much he complained if he had to come drive through that little subdivision because of all the cars?
Yeah.
And I'm like, but that to me, I'd walk through the fires of hell to see my son for 2 minutes.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so I never understood that, but it's what's important to you.
Yeah. I would say my dad's the same way. Again, I'll say some of this because it's on his podcast already and out there, but he will blame, and we grew up with this as well, so it's nothing new, although it's just public because of the podcast. He will blame anyone and everyone for why he doesn't have a good relationship with his kids. It was my mom drove a wedge. It was my ex stepdad drove a wedge. It was whatever it is. No one
Hmm.
made him late to pick us up. No
Right.
one told him not to come to our sports events.
Right.
He does tell a story in his podcast that my stepdad went to him at one point, um, and said that he was trying to build a relationship with us and asked my dad to step aside. There are people in my family who hate my ex-stepdad with a passion,
Hmm.
and not a single person believes that story.
Right.
Not a single one, right? Like, because my mom and stepdad, if my dad called up and said, "Hey, you either have to bring the kids to me or I'm not getting them this weekend because I don't have time," they took us every single time.
Right.
Now, is that the sign of two parents who are driving a wedge between a kid and a dad?
No.
No. But
No.
he never has faced the fact that he was only capable of so much. And
Hmm.
again, I get it. Like, I'm not faulting him,
Right. Right. You're
other
not
other
judging
than
him.
other
Right.
than for not taking responsibility and putting the blame on others. That is
Right.
the only thing I fault him for those moments, is because even now, 20, 25, 30 years later, he's still blaming other people for it.
I see a lot of that with my son's father.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's hard because there's no excuse to me.
Yeah. No.
It's one of those things. Just say, for instance, said, "You can come pick him up, take him out to eat one night after you get off work." Well, that don't make sense. Why would I drive 30 minutes to go take him to eat? And then, like, To me, I'm like, again, I would walk through the fires of hell
Mhm,
to
mhm.
see my son for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Um, you know, to me, it flabbergasts me. I don't
Mhm.
understand it,
Yeah.
but everybody's different,
Mhm.
and that's what makes the world go around,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. 100%. Yep. Yep. And again, I think, I think me and my siblings with our upbringing with our dad, I think it did light a fire under us
Hmm.
to be better parents, right? I think we all have the opportunity to take our trauma, analyze it, understand it,
Hmm.
and move beyond it. And you can move beyond it by repeating the pattern, or
Right.
by getting better. And I think each one of us, and again, I think because of my childhood, I was a lot more mentally attuned and astute of the possibility of what it means to not have responsibility
Right.
and not having a mechanism that maybe now I would say like I needed that force in the beginning
Hmm.
to make me show up, right? I wanted that 50-50, so I make sure I had him during the week, so I had sick time
Right.
and schoolwork and all of these things and sports drop off. But now like like our child custody agreement doesn't even matter anymore, right? Like we follow it fairly simply, but for me, like I'll show up to anything and everything. What I tell parents all the time when I'm talking to them, people that want to have a better relationship with their co-parent, is stop even saying the word yes. Like when it says, "Can you do this for me?" Say
Hmm.
the words "of course."
Hmm.
If there's no reason not to say yes, just
Right.
say "of course." Right? Like my ex knows that like if I'm saying like, "Oh, let me look into this," like it's because I'm genuinely looking into this to make sure there's no conflict.
Yeah, you're not just
Otherwise,
delaying.
right. Otherwise, the answer is of course. Of course, we can change. Of course, I can take him. Of course, we can do this.
Hmm.
We have a snowstorm coming up this weekend, and he's supposed to be at my house on Sunday to Monday. But they would require probably him come to my house early on Saturday with because we're supposed to get at least
Hmm.
5 to 8 inches. And she's like, "Do you want him?" Like, I was like, "Well, I think he needs to come to my house on Saturday, or you need to keep him till Monday
Right.
because they've already canceled school for Monday, I think." Or actually, I think it was already scheduled. But she's like, "No, I want him." So like, of course, you can have him. Like, it's
Right.
one day of 365 days, right? Like I see him all the time. I step in when she can't have him. I have a very flexible job being a consultant, working from home.
Hmm.
She's a nurse practitioner. She has patients and stuff, so
Right.
she can't just not go to work because there's a sick day or a snow day. So like I have them those times normally during the week because I can step up for those moments when for her professionally it's a lot harder.
Right. Your son, when you're traveling and you can't attend one of his games or something, does your wife go?
Sometimes she does. It depends what she's doing. She certainly has shown up to things even when I'm not there.
But she doesn't feel obligated to drop what she's doing and be there because you're not.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's a very interesting dynamic and it works. She even has her own relationship with my ex-wife. They have a few things in common. They're very different people, but have a few interests and they will text back and forth about things outside of me being
Hmm.
involved, books, whatever it may be. She feels very comfortable. Like if she were to show up to a sporting event and I'm not there, sitting with my ex-in-laws, sitting with my ex-wife. So is a very much a good dialogue. And as far as us not showing up at times, like again, we're just open and honest. Like, hey, we,
Right.
we have we have Ron's birthday party weekend. That we're going to the cabin. Dad's got a speaking gig or a consulting gig, whatever it may be.
Right.
So I think part of it is I think sometimes parents are afraid to be open and honest because they don't want their kids to judge them. Where really the unknown is where those negative feelings creep in. Like,
Right.
does my dad not want to be there? But if
Right.
if, but if you're explaining why you can't be there and having that conversation, and most importantly, showing up every time you can show up,
Hmm.
there is no negative feelings from your kids. Like they're it's impossible.
Right.
They understand that you have lives and jobs and everything as long as they can see you show up when you can.
Right. And when you were talking about your wife coming in to the games or something and sitting with your ex-wife's family, I'm thinking, how great is that? Instead, we hear all these stepmoms that they don't want to go to the kids' game, even with their partner, because bio mom's there and she's high conflict and she's giving them the evil eye or flipping them the bird, just all this stuff. And I'm like, I hope you know, and I hope your wife knows, and even your ex, how blessed you are to have those types of relationships.
We do. I mean, I think the whole family knows. My mom was. I told my mom this morning, and um, we were just catching up, and she let me know that she had text my ex mother-in-law say, "Help you guys get the snow you want," and instead of texting back, she picked up the phone and called my mom, right? And
Yeah,
they had some banter back and forth, right? So we understand that what we do to people is very, very different and even crazy to some people, but we also did this intentionally, and we think everyone else should be the same way, right? Like
right.
we understand how special and different it is,
Hmm.
which also makes us sad. And the reason why I wrote the book is because we wanted to flip the script. Like we weren't trying to change the world when we did it ourselves, but like this is a story that needs to be told because
Right,
we're doing it wrong. Um,
right.
and 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 to have the relationship that I have with my ex-in-laws, and last Saturday, my ex-wife was out of town with her partner celebrating their anniversary. But my ex-in-laws came to the basketball game, right? And we sat
Hmm.
next to him and we talked to him before the game, right? It the first couple months to a year, 2 years was a little awkward. Of
Hmm.
course it was, right? Because
Right.
these are people I loved and cared about and had a close relationship with, and then this changes and it just changes the dynamic. But if you just sit through the uncomfortability for a little bit, it eventually go away. And and
Right.
and, and I know I can call them up if I need something. They know they can call me up. They know they can call my wife up.
Hmm.
Like we do realize how special it is, especially when we see other teammates' parents are divorced, who like one's on one end of the field, one's on the other. Like there is, and you see that there has to be a logistical conversation that happens before or after the game, and the one who's leading the discussion, the other one's just like, how long
Yeah,
is this going to last? Like, can we get through this? Right? Like there is just animosity that still
yeah,
exists years later. And we love what we're building and hope that it keeps being contagious for other adults in this situation.
yeah. I know with my son, I remember his first little basketball game. I knew his dad wasn't going to sit within the vicinity of me. And so I told him, I said, when you finish playing, go to your daddy. Go say hey to your daddy and, then we'll leave or whatever. Because I did not want, and I can see this in my, in my mind, and it breaks my heart of a kid standing in the middle of a basketball court and one parent's on one side and one's on the other. And they're like, what do I do?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I didn't want that for him.
Yeah,
And even with my husband, there were times that when the mom had the kids and there was a school event, they ignored him.
yeah,
And that's heartbreaking.
yeah,
But they didn't want to upset mom.
yeah,
What?
yeah. So that's interesting to bring up. I mean, I think me growing up and playing sports, I think if my dad was there, he always sat with my mom and stepdad.
Hmm.
So that for me, the issue became more was when did my dad show up and when did he
Hmm.
leave? Right.
Right.
That was my childhood was looking in the bleachers to see if he was still there
Right.
because it was never a full game, right? And
Yeah.
so I didn't have that issue, but again, it's those are the things that hold on that stay with us, right? Like
Hmm.
not seeing your parents sit together, not seeing how people interact with one another. We are modeling communication and relationship strategies and tactics to our kids
Hmm.
and how we interact with each other. We could just again let the animosity down and just learn to let go a little bit,
Yeah.
and realize that look, things happen, but we're all human beings. We're all here for the kid. Again, it's not about
Right.
you; it's about the
Right.
kid. Whether it's the
Right.
grandparent, the parents, whatever it may be, we are all here to support this kid. And the best way we could do that is by doing it together.
Right. And doing it for the kid.
100%, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. I know there's been times that with my son that it's like, this might be uncomfortable, but it's what's best for him.
Hmm. Hmm.
I remember he graduated from high school and then he graduated 6 months later with his associate's degree. So there were back to back, it seemed like.
Yeah.
But we invited, his dad and his dad's side of the family for a dinner instead of having two different dinners that my son was going to have to figure out how to arrange to go to and not upset somebody. And then the whole graduation, I only get 3 tickets or I only get 4 tickets. What am I going to do? all that just stresses kids out and they don't need it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I always said with my stepkids, if they only got enough tickets for their grandparents and their parents to go, I would gracefully back out.
Sure. Sure.
But he has triplets. So, we looked up with
Each
that.
get
We
three.
got like
Yeah.
36 tickets or something crazy.
Yeah. 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 Okay. Wonderful. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. It's, we are constantly living our lives from our visions of the past, right? And something I talk about in a kind of personal development, stuff with my work and working with leaders. It's like it's never the past event itself, right? It's the stories we tell ourselves about it.
Right.
It's that past event that happened 20 years ago where someone cheated. It's over. Like no one actually really cares. It's the animosity. It's that he's a jerk. He was a
Right.
jerk 20 years ago, and see, he's still a jerk now, right?
Hmm.
It's the labels that we put on it that that don't allow us to disconnect from that, and we hold on to that. So we just gotta find those ways to just to let go of the stories we've created about the past.
Hmm.
Understand we're all human to some degree.
Right.
There are a few exceptions in the world, but
Yeah.
um, that again, just that if we can just keep that focus on the children and realize that we are that village and we need to model that proper village for them, it goes a long way.
Right. And if your kid, for instance, if your ex and you were having a discussion about how to coordinate holiday time,
Mhm.
if he saw y'all have a discussion and it be calm and productive,
Mhm.
he's more likely to have those types of discussions with his schoolmates
Yep.
when there's a conflict
Yeah.
because they are little sponges and they absorb everything. Whereas if they see you and your ex fighting all the time, then that's how they're going to try to resolve conflicts.
100%. I absolutely think that's what my son sees. The other thing it really does, which is related but not exactly on topic, is he also knows, because we all know that kids try to play against each other, play the parents against each other, even in the same home.
Oh, yeah, I did
When you
it.
have
I
when you
knew
have
not to
two
ask my mama
homes,
anything. Yeah.
yeah, when you have two homes, it's even trickier, right? Because
Hmm.
because they're not talking. They're normally parallel or dual
Hmm.
parents, not co-parents. But the amount that we talk, my son knows if one thing happens over here, the other side is going to know about it.
Hmm.
There's a cohesion between our family. A punishment's going to carry over from one house to the next. That if
Hmm.
there's a big issue, there are some things because she, she brings the more feminine energy to things with
Hmm.
the emotion and empathy. I probably bring more of a logical masculine energy to conversations. So we both have our strengths and how we approach things with our son, and they're both important, right?
Right.
Like him experiencing both of those aspects. And I actually struggled a little bit with the fact that he wasn't willing to be open and emotional with me about things, because we talk a lot about mindfulness and
Hmm.
letting things go and all those things that I'm learning at 40 that I wish I would have learned when I was his age.
I know.
Um, um, and a therapist that I was working with at the time, she's like, John, like, but when Henry comes to you, is your first response to give him a hug or help him think through the problem? I was like, of course, think through the problem. It's like
Right.
that's why, right? Because and it made me think about it. It's like he goes and cries to his mom, but when he comes to me, he's like, hey, I want to ask you a question.
Right.
This is happening. How can I do it? So
Hmm.
we're both helping him in very, very different ways. One having very strong emotions and being able to understand your emotions and let emotions out. The other one
Right.
being very logical about it. So long story short, I think even the dynamic of how we co-parent
Hmm.
and how we communicate with him, as well as how we communicate each other, is really making a great, well-rounded kid.
Yeah. I remember when my son started driving, I remember thinking, I hope he goes to his dad's like he's supposed to because I would never know.
Mm, mm,
Unless I got a text of you're keeping my kid from me or something like that. But it's other than that, I would never know. His dad wouldn't text me and go, he was supposed to be here but didn't show up. I mean, that's
really?
how distant the parenting was, right? I don't
Wow.
even think you could call it parallel parenting. It was like different planes or something. And
Universes.
yeah, yeah. And it was like, I'm so glad that my son did what he was supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't have to worry about that stuff. But I know a lot of people talk about Life 360. And I tell you, it is good to have if for no reason other than that, your kid's going where they're supposed to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
100%. Keeping open and honest conversations. I think goes a long way in curbing problems before they start.
Hmm.
And also, helping analyze and see issues your kid may be having, right?
Right.
Right. So obviously, that was kind of more of a responsibility thing with showing up at dad's, but there's also the less obvious things, emotions and that sort of thing.
Hmm.
And like my ex-wife and I had to have a conversation. Like he was being way more emotional at her house with schoolwork and other things than he was at mine, and he was lashing out to her, and he wasn't at my house. And so, when you can come together and have like, is this happening over here? Because this is getting bad over here.
Right.
You're able to work on things together. And I can come to him objectively and say, "Hey, look, I heard you really giving your mom a hard time. What's going on?" I'm
Right.
not I'm not offended by it. I'm coming objectively. He can be open and honest with me. And we're just able to have these open dialogues to talk about life and what's going on, and share these things in a way that um, it keeps. I would say that we've created a more cohesive environment than most single family homes.
100%. I agree. Because when you said that about, with him being more upset at mom's house, many men would take that as an opportunity to go to court and try
Mm,
to get more time with their kid because the kid's not happy at mom's.
yeah, yeah. And one of the big things that we solved was so our custody arrangement initially was I have them Wednesday to Friday every week,
Hmm.
one full weekend a month, one Sunday a month.
Okay.
But we got to a point where he was having a hard time on those Sunday transitions back to his mom.
Because it's so quick.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so other than the weekend is I have him for 4 days straight. And I talked to my mom about it. My mom's like, "You guys were always quiet when you came home from your dad's. Like that, like you guys, like we don't remember the transition affecting us."
Yeah.
My mom was like you guys were always different. You guys weren't nothing bad, but you were
Hmm.
definitely quiet when you came
Hmm.
back. And so, we got on the phone and we're talking like, how do we handle this? Like, because the meltdowns were bad at his mom's, and one of us is like, is there a reason why you can't keep him till Monday morning? Because it wasn't happening either time because our transitions always happen through school.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, like I don't do anything on Sunday nights. Like, of course I can keep them till Monday morning. So
Right.
we worked together. I got an extra full night, which actually was what equated to almost being 50% of
Right.
50 of custody. We solved a problem for our kid by just being open and honest about what we were seeing and experiencing, and work together in a way that it didn't affect either one of our lives.
Right.
And that's the magic.
Yeah. That's like a lot of kids will do the 2-2-3-3.
Mhm.
I don't know how in the world anybody keeps up with that. It would drive me crazy.
Right.
And I mean, think about it. It's like when you have to go out of town to travel, if you're there for a week, the first couple of days you're getting acclimated.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you come back home, you're getting reacclimated to being home.
Right.
If you bounced around from hotel to hotel every 2 days, you would never feel like you have a home, or you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's a lot for kids, and I think a lot of it depends on the age.
Sure.
Younger kids, I do think maybe the 2-2-3-3 works better because they're not away from their mom so long, or not away from their dad so long, or whatever. But I think the older kids get that, sometimes you have to look at what's best for them long term as far as these visitation schedules go.
Yeah. I mean, when my son is, a little bit older, high school, and sports are more demanding, um, does it make sense to go back and forth, like
Right.
in equipment and all this stuff, right? I mean, we do that now, in his sports now, but you know, I, you know, I suspect that our dynamic will change, and I believe that the foundation that we've built, there's not going to be any animosity.
Right.
Like I would say it would be harder for his mom to give up time just
Hmm.
from that mother son relationship,
Yes.
and the emotional connection there. Um, but I think that because of what we built now, we will do what's best for our kid. And even though it's going to be hard for her, there's one absolute truth to this, is like, I don't think she will ever see anything as it being a me versus her.
Right.
It might still be hard, but
Yes.
it will be about what's best for our kid because we built this foundation over, at that point, it'll be, 10, 15 years.
Right. I remember one time one of David's kids, their mom lived probably 15 minutes from us, but she was a minute and a half from where they were working. And so he said, I think I'm just going to stay with mom. That broke my husband's heart
Mm,
because he did take it personally. And, in his mind, he's thinking, we're 14 extra minutes. But this kid's thinking, it's 11 o'clock when I get out. I'm paying for gas. He's looking at it from a kid standpoint, too.
mhm,
And so, we talked about it, and it was like, this isn't about us. This isn't about mom. This isn't about dad. This is about what he feels is convenient. And
mhm,
so David sat down and talked to him, and they decided that it wasn't the best idea because there's one car that they shared with the other
mhm.
sibling. So, I mean, there were a lot of logistics to it
Yeah.
too, but it's still, I remember when Branson said that to David, it was like I just saw his heart break. And I'm like, okay, hang on, hang on. He's not doing this against you. He's just looking at it as this makes sense to me. I'm 15 years old, or yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'll admit, like when I had those kind of those questions about my son, kind of being open and honest, talking to my ex-wife about things, talking to his mom about things that were bothering him and all these things, and he wasn't with me when I've been trying so hard to like kind of talk, be open with him
Hmm.
and share things, and like one thing I've always done with my son, um, which is different from our upbringing, is like I make mistakes. Like when we grew up, when our parents when punished us, it was you're making me do this.
Right.
Right. Like you're the reason I'm yelling. You
Hmm.
guys, you're not listening, therefore I have to yell.
Right.
What are we teaching our kids? You can blame other people for your actions.
Yes.
So like when I lose my cool, when I do things, I go to my son like, I'm sorry, daddy's not perfect.
Yeah.
I make mistakes. This is on me, not on you. And so like building that type of relationship, and yet he still was in a place where he wasn't willing to go and open up and be emotional with me about things in his life.
Hmm.
It hurt me
Right.
until I had that secondary, that third party view of like, but John, you show up differently, and not
Right.
in a bad way. You
Right.
just show up differently. He gets something different from you, and I had to accept that
Hmm.
he's going to each one of us to get what he needs in that moment.
Right.
It wasn't about me. It wasn't about his mom. It was
Hmm.
about how he gets love and direction from each of us differently.
Yeah, it's about the relationships that you individually have with him.
Yep, yep,
Yeah.
100%.
Well, John, it has been great having you as a guest.
It's been wonderful.
And where can people find you? Or
Uh,
tell it the books on Amazon?
yes, the book is The Co-Parenting Secret. It's not about you. You can also go to jonbassford.com. That's John, Jon, Bass like a fish, Ford like a car. That's my personal branding page. Where you can learn more about me, and also the book is linked there as well.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. And we'll have to have you back soon.
Absolutely, sounds great.
Thanks. Bye bye.